Hello everyone, and welcome on into my Stamina Nightblade build for the Markarth patch. And I gotta say, this is definitely the best Stamblade build I have ever played. You know, the previous version that I did of this build, I told you guys this was the best build I ever played. Well, it's better now. It's actually better now, and I'm not gonna lie, this thing is good everywhere. It's got amazing sustain, amazing damage, amazing speed, amazing amounts of healing power, and enough hit points to actually be fairly durable in PvP. And this Stamblade build honestly feels like it has no real weakness. I mean, obviously we're gonna have, you know, more issues with someone who's got a lot of undodgeables and AoEs, but just the amount of healing power that we have, the amount of damage and everything, it's a very well-balanced build that I think does everything really, really well. And yeah, you can't go wrong with this guy even in the no CP campaign. It's got enough sustain to make no CP happen too. Honestly, I am incredibly satisfied with this build, and it has been an absolute blast to play this guy for the past week or so. Just kind of getting a few fights, and yeah, I really hope you guys enjoy it. This is a great build for experienced, beginner-level Nightblade, doesn't matter. We've got a written guide on my website, link down below for you guys. And without further ado, let's take a look at that build. So to start off, I am a Khajiit on this build. This is a very strong Stamina Nightblade build, so you actually don't even need to be a good race for it. Honestly, you could play this on a Magicka race and it would still be quite a good build. That being said, Khajiit is a good option because of the critical damage multiplier that it adds and the regens that it gets as well. But I gotta say, Wood Elf is probably the best race for this build just because our crit rate is a little bit lower than previous iterations of this kind of spec. Now, moving on to our max stat, we have actually got some good stat on this build. We've got a decent amount of Magicka, we don't need a ton of that, 28.4k stamina, and a whopping 27k, almost 30k hit points on our back bar. And having all this extra HP is definitely really nice in today's meta. There's a ton of different things that can deal a huge amount of damage to you. Even tanky opponents can slot some procs and burst you through 20k hit points. So I think having around 30k HP is kind of a must-have if you want to be fairly successful in PvP nowadays, or you've got to have some damage shields or something in order to make yourself bulkier. Now, moving on to our recoveries, this build has got some incredible sustain. We're going to show you guys the base sustain, 1500 Magicka recovery, almost 1500 health recovery, and then nearly 2300 stamina recovery. Now, we are also running the torque on this build, so our sustains actually get really crazy once we start expending our resources. Our total stam recovery is 3.2k, and our total Magicka recovery will get over 2.2k as well. So if we get our resources pressed on this spec, you will get a ton of sustain back from the torque. Needless to say, you should not have sustain issues on this build, to the point where I'll say you could probably play this spec without any adjustments in no CP, and you'll feel like you still have a lot of sustain. Of course, if you want to play this in no CP, consider changing some of the weapon damage glyphs to stamina recovery, and that's literally all you have to change. Now, moving on to our weapon damage and our weapon critical. When we buff up our weapon damage, we have got 4,142 weapon damage with 38.4% weapon crit. Now, we do get the minor critical chance buff, which will bring us up to about 45% weapon crit. This is on the lower end for a Nightblade, I think. It's kind of actually like base medium armor crit rate. And next patch, when the new champion system comes in, this will go down a little bit more too. The weapon damage will spike up a lot next patch though, which is good. That being said, our weapon damage is a lot higher than the 4.1k shown here. We have also got an infused bow on the back bar, and we've got the 2-piece Balorg on, so we can easily crank our weapon damage over the 5k mark. And of course, we get a little bit more weapon damage from hitting an opponent from behind on the Nightblade. So I would say on this build, 6k is going to be kind of the high end of your weapon damage when you use your ult and you have all your buffs up. Now, moving on to our resists, we don't have a ton of physical or spell resist. People are running a lot of penetration this patch. So honestly, if you don't have like over 30k physical or spell resist, it's kind of like you don't have armor at all right now. And then of course the crit resist is 2,557. These resists aren't crazy, they're just kind of base medium armor. They don't have to be super great. This build is really strong because it has insane healing power. And the high hit point value allows you to really utilize that healing power, so don't worry too much about the resists. And then for the Mundus, we have got the Atronach on, and this is for additional Magicka recovery. You could switch this to get a little bit more damage on the build if you want, but the mag recovery is really nice because it allows us to almost perma-cloak on a Stamblade that is really good at fighting outside of cloak as well, so it gives you a lot of options. That's why I like it there. And then for the food, we have the Artaeum Takeaway Broth, and this is always one of the best stamina foods in the game. We get max health, we get health recovery, max stam, and stamina recovery. We need all these stats, great for our build. And then for the potion that we're using, we just have the standard Essence of Health, which gives us all of the resources back, and that whopping 40% recovery bonus to all of our recoveries as well. Now, let's take a look at the gear that we're running on this bad boy. The first set we mentioned already, we've got Balorgh on, and Balorgh is a fantastic set, if not one of the best burst sets for PvP. When you use your ultimate, you're going to get an additional amount of weapon damage equal to the amount of ultimate consumed, and then you get a whole bunch of additional penetration on top. That penetration is what is going to help you deal damage in PvP, not so much the weapon damage side of things. So yeah, this build's rocking a lot of penetration, well over 20k physical penetration when we're fully buffed. Really nice stuff. Now, taking a look at the next set we have got Nocturnal's Favor on our bow bar. This is an amazing set, and this is a huge reason why I'm loving playing medium armor again. In today's day and age, there's tons of damage that is simply put unblockable or undodgeable, and even if you're trying to avoid it on a medium armor build, you can find yourself getting chewed away by these kind of attacks. This set allows you to have a huge amount of healing power when you use your roll. Almost a 12k heal over 5 seconds. Let's quickly take a look at the Vigor tooltip on this build. Our Vigor tooltip is coming in at 16.6k. So it is 2/3 of a Vigor when we successfully dodge an attack on our back bar. On a 5-second cooldown, this pretty much costs us nothing because we'd be dodging that attack anyway. The amount of healing that this provides during the course of regular gameplay is quite incredible. In the footage, you guys will see the 800 to about 1k ticks from this set ticking very often as we play. And then finally, on our front bar, we have switched to a 5-piece of stuns. So we've got the 2 5-pieces kind of on swap between our 2 weapons. And Stun's Favor, I mean, we've talked about it. This is probably, if not the best damage set that a Nightblade can run because they have really easy access to that off balance through their surprise attack. Weapon damage, physical penetration, weapon damage in the 2, 3, 4 piece, also incredibly good for damage. And yeah, this is where a bulk of our base damage is going to come from, just the stun set. And then in our jewelry, we have the Torque on as well. This, of course, is going to give us that huge amount of sustain, allowing us to push over 2.2k Magicka and 3.2k Stamina recovery. And then our last piece that we have on is the Ring of the Trainee, because we had a simple 1-piece left over, and it's going to give us 1454 max health. Honestly, a really awesome 1-piece to have in today's PvP meta. Hit points goes a really long way. So let's take a look at the enchants and traits on our gear here. Starting off on our Nocturnal's Favor bow, it is infused with the weapon spell damage enchant. This is one of the best things for a back bar. You get a huge amount of weapon damage bonus, and it is a ranged weapon too, and this amount of weapon damage will carry over when we swap to our front bar, allowing us to just put more burst on our combo as long as we make sure to lead with a bow attack every 5 seconds. And then on our front bar, I have a Nirnhoned Stuns Maul. Honestly, this should probably be sharpened. Nirnhoned is not a terrible option. It'll give you a little bit more healing, but this build does not struggle whatsoever in the healing department. Sharpened will give you better damage. I do actually have a Sharpened Maul, but it's on my other character. Yeah, just being really lazy here, but definitely Sharpened, I think, if you can get it. And then for the enchant, we have poison damage, and there's one huge reason that I like to pick poison. You have a 20% chance to apply the poison status when you hit them with this enchant. And when that status is applied, the first tick of poison damage, it puts a dot on them, will hit them instantly. So you get a little bit more additional burst when your poison enchant goes off 20% of the time. I just like that. You know, if you're playing a burst build, having any additional damage on top always helps. And then we've got infused with weapon damage on the jewelry here. Again, if you guys want to play this in no CP, you can put some stamina recovery glyphs here. I don't think you'll need more than just one. And then taking a look at our gear, I've got a mix of well-fitted and invigorating. Invigorating, actually quite a good trait, I think, because of not only the recent buffs to the invigorating trait itself, but because we now get a 40% regen bonus instead of 20% for our major bonuses. So Yeah, we can push the base sustain on the invigorating trait a little further than we used to be able to, and it's going to give us health recovery and magicka recovery. I can't stress how important both of those are, especially for this build. We want to be able to cloak a lot, and health recovery is a huge part of passive healing in PvP. Now, well fitted, of course, such a good trait because it'll make our roll dodge cheaper and it'll make our sprint cheaper, mostly for that roll dodge though. And I believe we have 3 invigorating on and 4 well fitted. You could have any real combination of these 2 that you like. Now for the glyphs on the gear, they are all maximum stamina, save a couple of them here. I would recommend making them all max stam though. It's just going to give you more additional base damage and healing. Alright, so let's take a look at the skills we're running on this build. Starting off on our greatsword bar, the first skill we have is Surprise Attack. This is your primary spammable for the build. It will reduce your opponent's armor by 5%, and if you hit them from a flank, it will also set them off balance and stun them for 3 seconds. The off balance will proc our stun's favor set, giving us even more penetration when we use our Surprise Attack. So not only is this Nightblade's best spammable, but in this build, it is also a massive debuff to our opponent as well. Really good stuff. The next ability we have is Ambush. This is going to be our primary gap closer. Ambush is nice for a few reasons. The first one being that we get that minor vulnerability for 5% additional damage against our opponent. Again, another Nightblade combination skill that's going to debuff our opponent. And it also grants us Empower for our next light attack, which is going to actually amplify our burst a little further. But the nature of it being a gap closer and having a little bit of a delay before it teleports allows you to stack a good combo with the surprise attack after you ambush into an opponent. The typical combo I like to do on the Nightblade is a fully or partial charged bow heavy attack, follow it up with a weapon swap into ambush, and then a light attack surprise attack right afterwards. That combo seems to stack fairly fast depending on your distance from the target, and it can allow you to get a pretty quick snappy kill on someone without them expecting it. Now the next skill we have is Camouflaged Hunter, and this is here mostly for the passives that it provides. It's going to give us the major savagery buff when it's on our front bar here, which is awesome for our crit rate. And of course we get minor berserk when we hit an opponent from the flank, even more incentive to use our surprise attack correctly. And we can use it as a stealth detect. We do have actually the stealth detect mark on this build. If you want to run the other morph of that, you can, but you always have the option of using the stealth detect from Camo Hunter here. And finally, we get a 3% passive weapon damage boost just for slotting this as well. And then the next skill we have is Rally. This is going to give us major brutality for that weapon damage buff, minor endurance for that stamina buff, and of course it is a burst heal that gets more powerful as the duration of your rally goes on. Now the healing portion of this is really nice because it gives us a good burst heal, but I'll be honest again, the healing power on this build is very, very strong. If you guys actually want to run forward momentum here, you're totally able to do that. I would say this build has a lot more flexibility skill-wise than maybe some previous Stam Blades that I've done. Now, the next ability we have is Relentless Focus, and this is going to be here for the passive critical damage buff that it provides when we use it, and then, of course, that massive Spectral Arrow shot when we get the 5 lighter heavy attacks off on our opponent. 17k base damage without us buffing up on the tooltip versus that 9k surprise attack. This is our hardest hitting single target attack on the build. And then for our last ability, we have Incapacitating Strike, and this is going to be your primary damage ultimate. It deals a pretty decent, almost 15k disease damage, and your opponent will take 20% more damage from your attacks for 6 seconds after you use it on them. You can definitely see the theme of Nightblade here. We have a ton of different burst abilities, and every single one of them will cause our opponent to take more damage from our next attacks. So it just allows Nightblade to have a huge amount of burst damage, and honestly, they do it better, I think, than any other class with just straight up non-delayed burst. Finally, if we use our Incap while above 120 ultimate, we will stun our opponent when we use it on them. And then finally, we get that Reeve passive, giving us a little bit of resource back when we hit an opponent with light or heavy attacks and they have a negative effect on them. All of our attacks throwing out negative effects, except maybe the Relentless Focus, which buffs us. Now, moving on to our back bar, the first ability we have is Piercing Mark. And I picked Piercing Mark because the Major Breach debuff is very, very strong, thanks to its recent value increase to almost 6k physical and spell resist. On top of it, it can make a stealth opponent visible to us for 3 seconds. Even if they go into cloak, we can see them. So it allows us to just prevent an enemy Nightblade from escaping as long as we're quick to mark them. This is a really, really, really good burst skill. You could go for a bow skill here if you want. You don't have to run Mark, but I'll be honest, the additional damage it provides is really nice, and we have an insane amount of physical penetration because we're running Mark as well. Now, the next ability we have is Race Against Time. This is here for that minor force buff and, of course, for that resistance to snares and immobilization. You could definitely run Shuffle here, too, if you want. Our healing power is really good, though, so it's not like we need Shuffle in order to be durable enough. That being said, we are pretty hard countered by a big AoE Magplar or Mag DK, so it could come in handy to have the option for Shuffle here. I do like Race Against Time, though, because while we're in Cloak, we can use this without breaking Cloak to give us that major expedition, just allowing us to move a little bit quicker at the cost of a little bit more magicka. And of course, the minor force buff is nice for our outgoing damage, but I wouldn't say it's 100% necessary, so you do have options with this guy again. The next ability we have here is Resolving Vigor. This is your primary heal for the build, pretty much. Whenever your health is really low, go for that Vigor and dodge an attack. It will shoot up super fast. If we combine our Vigor tooltip here with the Nocturnal's Favor, we have almost a 30k heal over 5 seconds. Yeah, that's why this build has insane healing power. The combination of those two is insane. And then finally, we have Shadow Image as our next skill, and this is a fantastic ability for solo PvP on the Nightblade. It allows you to teleport all over the place, and you basically set the shade down and teleport back to it whenever you need to get out of a bad situation. This is incredibly good because it allows you to survive things that every other class would pretty much not be able to survive because they don't have a teleport like this. And then when you combine Shadow Image with Cloak, things start to get really crazy for the Nightblade. This is why Nightblade does so well by itself in PvP, because it is the absolute master of misdirection. Not only does this make us invisible, but it will also guarantee our next attack will be a critical strike. And our critical damage is pretty freaking decent on this build too, so it just amplifies the burst even further. And then finally, for the ultimate on the back bar, I have Temporal Guard. You don't have to run this, but I quite like Temporal Guard because we gain minor protection on the back bar. And of course, when we use that ultimate, we can teleport back to where we were 4 seconds ago. This is like the ultimate get the heck out of there option for our Nightblade. We have multiple teleports, we have invisibility. Yeah, we have a really great kit to stay alive against a lot of people in PvP. So we're going to take a look at the champion points. I'm actually going to take a look at the current CP system right now, and then the new CP system that's coming. I'm going to give you guys my breakdown of what I think we should run in the future, but keep in mind that I have not played this build with the new CP yet, simply because it's not out in the real game, so I'm not sure what in practice will be the best, but nonetheless, I will give you guys my estimation of what I'm at least going to start with. Now, taking a look at the Tower Mundus to start off, we got 40 Warlord and 3 in Siphoner. Taking a look at the Lover, we got 49 Mooncalf and 23 Arcanist with 64 in Healthy. Taking a look at the Shadow, we got 51 in Tumbling and 40 in Shadow Ward. Moving on to the Apprentice, we got nothing. In the Atronach, we got a whopping 39 in Physical Weapon Expert and, of course, 81 Master at Arms, important for that direct damage. In the Ritual, we've got 51 Precise Strikes, 50 in Piercing, and 49 in Mighty. A nice even spread because our crit rate isn't really high this patch. And then taking a look at the Steed Tree, my red points are actually kind of a mess. I didn't realize that when I was putting the build together, but we got 51 Ironclad, 50 Resistant, 23 Spell Shield, 22 in Medium Armor Focus. We should have a few more points in this tree for Unchained. That's a big oversight on my part. And that would probably come out of Spell Shield, Medium Armor Focus to give us 43, 43, and then 31 Thick Skin. And then finally, in Quick Recovery, we have 7. We could have a few more points in here too, but there you go, guys. All right, guys, now we're going to take a look at the new champion system. Now, I am on the PTS, and I only have 810 champion points for this new system. There is no CP cap, so essentially, the higher level you are, the more you can put points into these kind of yellow stars here, because these are just permanent passives, and there are some of them in these purple stars as well. And then, of course, the new champion system, you get to slot 4 different blue stars, 4 different green stars, and 4 different red stars of your choice. So let's dive into it. The blue tree is your warfare tree. So this is your primary kind of combat and damage dealing tree. And I've decided to put my points into pretty much a critical spec for this. We've gone a lot of points in precision for that increased crit chance. We've got 50 points in backstabber, and this is one of the orbs that we end up slotting, or stars we end up slotting. This is going to give us up to a 15% damage bonus when we land a critical hit from behind. Again, playing into that backstab gameplay on this build. 10% total additional critical damage from fighting finesse, and this is another blue orb that we slot at the top. I also have Wrathful Strikes for 165 invisible weapon and spell damage to our damaging attacks. I say invisible because this won't show up on your stat sheet, but you do get the damage bonus as if you had it. And then finally, we have Untamed Aggression as our last blue star, and that's going to give us 150 weapon and spell damage. I favored the weapon spell damage route because you could go actually for max stam in the different routes here, but that's really only if I had more champion points to invest into these passives. This one, of course, is a blue star. Now, taking a look at the passives that we've slotted points into, of course, we went over the Precision passive. In the Purple Nebula here, you can see we have 20 points in Piercing for that additional offensive penetration. And then finally, I have 10 points in Tireless Discipline for 260 additional maximum stamina. If I could place even more champion points in this build, I would continue to fill out probably the offensive trees first. Starting off, of course, with Tireless Discipline for more max stam, and of course, taking a peek at the defensive trees and the offensive trees for more penetration and stuff. Pretty much all these yellow stars you want to invest in, minus maybe the max mag, and Healing Done, also a really good stat for this build, but it's something I just don't have the CP for on the PTS. Now, taking a look at the red tree, it's a little bit more of a mess. We only have 3 stars slotted here. The first one is Rejuvenation, which will give us 150 of all 3 recoveries. Absolutely fantastic. The next one we have is Strategic Reserve, which will give us 30 health recovery for every 10 ultimate that we have. If we get up to 500 ultimate, that's 1500 health recovery. That is a ton of passive healing. Now, you want to use your ultimate a lot, of course, in a fight in order to hit harder, but it gives this build quite a good passive heal over time if we're put on the back foot for a long period of time. And then the last one we have is Ironclad for a little bit more additional armor per a stage. There is a lot of different red tree options here that I think could be good for the build, but without testing them on the in actual PvP combat, I guess, I won't have much of an idea of what's going to be the best option. So yeah, for the red stars, those are the 3 that I picked right now. Then taking a look at the yellow stars in this tree, and that is the passives that we have on all the time. We have Defiance, just 1 stage in here for 110 cost reduction to break free. I have Full Tumbling for 360 cost reduction to our rolls. And then I've also got 10 in Hero's Vigor for a little bit more max health. This was actually so that I could get to the Strategic Reserve star point, because you do need to make sure that these are connected to have access to them. Then I've got full points in Hasty for 8% movement speed bonus while sprinting. Really nice stuff, especially medium armor. We're going to sprint a lot, so this just pushes that speedy gameplay. And then we've also got 10 points in Sprinter for a little bit of sprint reduction cost, and 10 points into the Guardian for a little bit of a block reduction cost. Yeah, again, if we had more points, we could just start dumping more points into the defensive abilities that I've kind of started with here and just fill them out as we go. And then finally, we're going to take a quick look at the green tree. The green tree has very little impact on your actual in-combat stuff. There are 2 important things that I do want to mention for a combat build, though. The first one is going to be Break Fall, 35% reduced fall damage. This is a really, really, really good star to have. Especially if you play PvP in Cyrodiil, you're going to get knocked off the edge sometimes. You're going to fall sometimes too. Just reducing that damage that you take can have a huge impact on the overall fight. So that one is very important, I think. And then finally, we have the Steed's Blessing. It's been nerfed from the original 50% movement bonus down to 20% non-combat movement bonus. So once we enter combat, we won't have this bonus. This is really nice though, because we're not always in combat, especially as a Nightblade with access to Cloak. We can break combat pretty easily, and that will make our cloak a little faster as we try to reposition. So there you go. That is my best attempt at the new champion tree. Of course, guys, keep in mind that these are subject to change as I get to actually try out the CP on the live server later on in March. All right, guys, let's jump right into that PvP commentary. So starting us off, we're outside an enemy siege line. This guy's throwing snipes down. What we do is we go for that partial charged heavy attack, the ambush, and then the light attack, surprise attack, and we managed to get a good combo on him, finishing him with the last attack there. And that's just a quick showcase of the kind of out of stealth combo that you want to use on this build. And we're going to go for a similar combo on this guy here. We stealth up, go for that heavy attack, swap into the ambush, and I lead with our ultimate afterwards. And then as soon as I break the counter stun from the yellow player there, I hit the guy with a surprise attack, light attack bash. Unfortunately, I don't get the damage to kill him, brought him really close, and I'm just going to teleport back to my shade, reset it, and reset my buffs as we go back around the wall here. And one enemy Sork follows us. He goes for the stealth detect, everything. That's okay. We just jumped on top of him there. He blocked our first surprise attack, preventing the stun, but it did set him off balance, so we followed up with a partial charged heavy to get the stun later on there, and then we connected with another huge surprise attack to finish him off. And this enemy Dragon Knight jumps on top of us here. I go for the ambush, and he does a good job reading the rest of the combo. We're just going to shade back to safety there. A lot of players throwing some crap down on us, and an enemy Nightblade jumps on top of us as soon as we try to shade. He ends up getting a good break on our cloak with his ambush there. The gap closer will stick to you and pull you out of cloak when they use it. And I just keep attempting to get the cloak as we retreat up to the top here. And I just come here because it's a little bit better terrain to reset my buffs. Now we're going to re-engage with the yellow. Go for the cloak right away there. Big ultimate out of the cloak, and then follow it up with a light attack, surprise attack. These guys put some big damage on me there, and now you get to see that healing power on the build. We got a lot of stuff ticking on us as well, and I'm doing my best to just kite it out. We haven't even gone for the big heals there. We managed to just get the escape using cloak and shade to safety, and then we dodge that attack. You can see the Nocturnal's favor is going to finish off our healing there. And the yellow players, man, they're coming in a little bit more force. We get a huge off-balance stun on that guy. I follow it up with the ultimate and the light attack, surprise attack, and then we finish him with a little poke at the end there. And we jump right away on top of the next player. He stealths up, and I'm going to turn around and go for this sword. He is set off balance, and we get that partial charged bow heavy to hit him with that stun there. He throws the meteor down, and I time the block just to absorb the meteor, and then we roll outside of the AoE there. And we managed to finish the Sork off by just not getting stunned by his combo. And then right away on top of the next target here, a good combo out of stealth, that partial charged heavy into the ambush, the light attack, surprise attack. This combo, man, not only does it stack nicely, but there's so many damage buffs and opponent armor debuffs going into it. And a bit of kiting here as more yellow players start to converge on us. I go for that combo again, partial charged heavy, the light attack, surprise attack. This player does the right thing. She holds block and absorbs the combo quite easily, and this forces me to have to retreat, reset my buffs again, set a fresh shade down, and then we pop right back into cloak. Now the yellow are kind of sticking around the bodies too. No one's going for the res. There's a player going for the res. We just quickly hit this guy with a huge ultimate 16k crit on the spectral arrow. That is us putting as much damage into that shot as we can. And then right away jump on top of this player that got the res, get her with the stun. She won't have the stamina to break it if she didn't drink a potion right away. And we open up on the next guy. Notice the bow heavy into the weapon swap and the surprise attack for the stun. It's important that we try to get the bonus damage off that bow heavy attack, the weapon spell damage proc on it. And there you see again, lots of yellow coming around the corner. We're just doing some work with Shade to stay alive. Shade is your best friend in these situations. We get caught with a bad stun there right next to our Shade too, so I go up the hill away from the Shade, and then we just quickly teleport back to it, set a fresh Shade down around the corner. I think it's good to try to hide your Shade because people do tend to camp it if they see it. And we get a great combo on this enemy Warden here, followed up with the last little poke after the roll, and he goes down. And yeah, his Crimson set is not going to save him from the burst that this build has. And we just keep doing a little bit of work. More yellow players coming around the corner, popping out of stealth as well. And I set a fresh Shade down on the other side of the hill here, but the yellow have got me pretty heavily surrounded. Another friendly red player coming in. Good stuff. We might have a little bit of a chance to get a bit of a breakaway, but the yellow are still chasing us pretty hard. I'm having a hell of a time trying to make the cloak here. Finally get some line of sight and pop back into cloak, direction change, and we're going to open up on the player that attacks us here. He goes into his jabs, and I counter right away with my ultimate, knowing he's going to drop his block when he does the jab, so we get the stun there and the surprise attack to finish him off. And then we jump right away on top of this enemy Nightblade, get good damage into him, and that was actually the spectral arrow off of the bow there that connected to finish him off. And then the lightning staff heavy is tough because that'll pull you out of stealth even at a distance. So I went for the kite into the rocks there. Also got to set a fresh Shade down in the rocks too. And we get a good combo on the next player. Huge ultimate there. The light attack, surprise attack connecting to finish that guy off too. Huge, like 4.6k light attack crit on that guy. And lots of direction changes as we use Cloak here. It's so important when you use Cloak to constantly be dynamic with your movement. And we managed to get ourselves in a pretty tricky spot. Another meteor coming down. I set the fresh shade. We hold the block on the meteor. And I go for the Cloak to kite away. And we manage again to break distance from the group. Trying to open actually on that guy there. But right away we take too much pressure. And I just kite back into safety here. And we're going to re-Cloak up. And I actually end up dying here because I was being stupid. So yeah, I didn't end up saving it, but we go down eventually there. And moving on to our next fight. We're inside the keep this time, and I just open up on the player on siege. Obviously, Nightblade's so good at attacking the back of a siege line because they can go in and go out, and it makes it very easy to be relatively undetected. We go in on this guy with the ambush combo and hit him with the bash to prevent him from getting the res. This guy's got his big AoE Warden ultimate on us. Thank God we put that shade down. We have an easy escape outside of that AoE snare. And we just, again, try to go for a combo. We get the bash on this guy. I go for a couple surprise attacks. I think maybe should have gone for the ultimate there. I might have been able to kill him if I did. But instead, I go for the big, fully charged heavy into the ultimate and then the spectral arrow on that guy. He absorbed the first few attacks and took so little damage, but he took a ton of damage from our surprise attacks at the end there. He must have been running something to absorb that damage initially. And we do manage to kill him. And yellow is going to come charging out of the keep. It looks like they, I think, just finished flipping the flags. Again, I'm going to do my best to try to keep these guys from rezzing it, but there's a lot of yellow. I know that we're not going to keep this guy's body down, but hey, it won't stop me from at least trying. And they managed to pick him up. I just go for a little bit of a kite. I'm just being patient. When you have a lot of players kind of grouped up like that, and they all got proc stat and stuff on, you don't want to be the target of that train. So trying to keep a little bit of distance from the bulk of the group and always having that safety shade for these kinds of moments where we do pull a lot of attention and we can quickly safety out with the shade pretty much and reset our buffs and just re-attempt to do something against these yellow. I quickly pick off or try to pick off that guard there. Those ones in particular are super annoying because they'll stun you at a distance and they will also throw down negates and stuff. So we do get the kill on her right away, opening on this enemy player. He does not break the stun, and that just allows us to put way too much damage. We read his roll there too and just follow up with the partial charged heavy at the end of his roll. And we managed to bring that guy down, jumping right away on top of the next player. We get a good stun on him, but a lot of players were waiting for me there. They go for the damage, and looks like that's the front end of the yellow train. That safety shade coming in so handy again. Back around the corner, resetting our buffs, and just kind of throwing like random marks down. This guy set off balance. That's why I tried to go for the combo there if we had gotten the ambush, but I honestly think if the animation of the ambush had time to go off there, we probably would have been killed by the rest of the yellow, so kind of a dangerous move to try. Just go for, again, a kite and a reset, and we mark this enemy Nightblade. He dodges the first attack, and I just keep feeding him attacks. I hit him with the spectral arrow, though, actually do some decent damage, and he retreats back into stealth. And we still have that safety shade. Getting locked down by the Templar, never a good time. Right away, we shade out, set a new one. Templar particularly dangerous on a build like this. But, wow. Big combo from behind there. Oh, man, I don't think he saw that coming. Great stun on this guy with the off balance as well. And then a light attack, surprise attack, and we finish those two off. And just come right back outside the keep, set the new shade down, go into stealth, a little bit of a direction change, jump on top of him. Big surprise attack combo, hit him with the spectral arrow too. Unfortunately, we got really unlucky with the crits there, but we still put enough damage in to bring her down. And then back to the shade again. I think it's so important on a build like this that you refresh your shade as often as possible. Just because if you find yourself in a bit of a prolonged engagement, you still don't want to be on cooldown with that. You want to make sure that you have the ability to port to safety. And we jump on top of this last guy there, bring him down. And eventually, some more EP show up, and we end up actually cleaning up the rest of the yellow in there. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. We've got just a little bit more footage here as we say our goodbyes. I really hope you guys give this build a shot. This is a very, very good Nightblade build. I know I said at the beginning of the video it was a really good build, and I really meant it. This build has everything, and it's very well rounded, so I find it performs incredibly well in PvP just everywhere. And, you know, if you guys are newer to PvP, I think this is even a great build for you too, because it is just so strong all around, and it has a lot of room to grow into with a rather high skill ceiling as well. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. And of course, we've got more content and builds coming in the future. If you guys want to send in clips for the top 5, or if you guys want to send in a build to be featured on the channel, you can send that to KristoferESO@hotmail.com. Check out my website, KristoferESO.com, for a written guide to this build, as well as all of my other ones. And you can give me a follow on Twitch and Twitter if you guys want to catch that live gameplay, or just keep up to date with what's going on in my life. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers, and they can give you better ping to your favorite games, free to try for the first month. Link down below in the description for you guys. And then last but certainly not least, a huge thank you and a massive shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show and helping me continue to bring this content. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you everybody for being involved in the top 5s and everything. I really appreciate that I get to do what I get to do. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a great night, and I will see you next time.